prepared to continue to mobilize. We are calling for everyone to act in a strategic, disciplined, nonviolent way. But do not, and I repeat, do not allow either decision to feel that the case is over.
That, of course, Reverend Al Sharpton weighing in today on the death cases in Ferguson, Missouri, and he's also referencing the Staten Island case as well, where a decision obviously has yet to be made by the grand jury in the Eric Garner case. Now, it has been 4 months since Eric Garner died, the 43-year-old, as you all remember, on this video that you see here, put in a chokehold by an NYPD officer for selling loose cigarettes. It is a move that the city medical examiners say aided in his death, did the chokehold. The altercation was caught on video, and Sharpton says the video says it all.
In New York, you have a videotape of the choking of Eric Garner, and you have the medical examiner that has said that that was the cause of death. The policeman has a right to give his side, but the jury does not decide his guilt or innocence. Clearly, the videotape and the medical examiner is the basis to go with probable cause to trial.
Now, Sharpton, for his part, says that his group's organized vigils that are going to be held outside of federal buildings in 25 cities once the decision comes down in the case out of Ferguson, Missouri. Love him or hate him, he will be a major player in this case come Friday or whenever else we get a decision out of Ferguson. And speaking of Missouri, the governor there, Jay Nixon, he, as we mentioned before, has a National Guard on standby, and police are prepared to boost their number of officers ahead of the decision. While some say the move prudent, others say it's only going to create panic within the community. All right, I'll come back to Staten Island in a second, but Susan, let's say you're trying this case, or for that matter, you're an official. Is the idea that we got a state of emergency and calling in the National Guard? And I understand what happened before with riots, and the police certainly not exactly putting on the best face with the riot gear, SWAT team, paramilitary, presence. Is it prudent, or is it just sending the message, rightly or wrongly, that, hey, we expect the worst here and we're going to act accordingly?
Well, it's challenging. It does create a hostile environment, but the problem is that whenever there's a large gathering of people, the municipality deploys the local police force, which they can't do in this case. So as an alternative, the governor has put the National Guard on, or on alert.
State of emergency? He doesn't have a choice, I guess, right?
I don't know about a state of emergency, but you know, gearing up for the possible reaction that may occur is certainly prudent. The problem is that if there's no indictment here, then this conduct is going to be cited by so many as saying you knew there was going to be no indictment. It was fixed from the beginning, and so on and so forth, and that's why you did that. So we said before, you know, damned if you do, damned if you don't. You do need to protect the community, but on the other hand, the repercussions are going to be
And I got a basic question, Doug. Say you're prosecuting the case, okay? And this prosecutor, obviously, he didn't pick a side, okay? But this wasn't a sequestered jury. They're going home every night. They're hearing that the National Guard's in the streets of Ferguson, that there's a state of emergency. I got to tell you, if I'm Officer Wilson right now, I got to say, you're not doing me a lot of favors with this. The jury doesn't want to come back with no indictments and then worry, you know, their names could be released. All the officers in the Ferguson PDs, they've all been released in their private information. You've got, obviously, a potential violent situation on their hands. They may want to say, listen, let's indict him on something and let the jury in the criminal case take this thing over. I don't know. I'm putting myself in Wilson's seats right now. They've heard everything, this jury. They're going home. You know,
Listen, that's a very valid point. I mean, you have to be a very strong juror to say, listen, nothing bad happened here, knowing all the... But listen, it works both ways. You know, you also, a juror could be saying, hey, listen, this police officer didn't do anything wrong, and I'm going to do the right thing. So listen, this is a tough situation on both sides.
But my problem is you also have the prosecutor saying, I'm going to release all of the grand jury minutes, and I haven't even decided whether to redact the names. The part of the grand jury that's so important is that secrecy. So not only are these grand jurors going home knowing about the National Guard, they're also going home going, our names could be out there, you know.
And this comes back, Jason. You saw Sharpton today. He connected this to the case out of Staten Island. And fair or not, this is going to be seen here as a season where justice and racial justice is on trial in America. How can one conflate into the other or one impact the other?
Well, certainly if both Ferguson and Staten Island result in no prosecutions, no indictment, I think it could conflate and it could add to the sense in the community that they're not protected, that police officers are protected, and that, you know, unarmed young black men are just unsafe.
I've heard from a lot of folks that Ferguson may or may not be bad if there are no indictments, but if there's nothing that comes out in Ferguson, people are worried about in New York what might happen if the same thing happens after the Garner case. I mean, they believe that there's a connection, but we were talking in the break, for anybody who believes that there's a 2 or 3 week interregnum between the Ferguson decision and Staten Island, you're hearing different. You think this is going to take a while, right, in Staten Island?
It seems that way. There's no indication that the Staten Island presentation is coming to any conclusion. Surprisingly, there's a videotape, there's a medical examiner's report. Seems fairly clear cut, but it is taking a long time.
So what's he going to be doing for 2 or 3 months?
Hard to tell.
Yeah.
This idea that, hey, if you have body cams on cops, that somehow the video will clear everything up. Doesn't work that way, does it? It helps. I mean, it clears up some of the mysteries about what happened, but even then, it's not as cut and dry. And I think, again, for the general population, they said, if we can see it with our own eyes, you know, if it looks like a duck, you know, quacks, we know what it is. People still argue what you're looking at, even when it's in Technicolor in front of you, right?
Well, the problem with body cams, just like microphones, they can be turned off and they can be covered so that you can't hear anything, you can't see anything.
All right, it's going to be fascinating. Real quickly, guys, you think we're going to find out Friday? If you think we do, no indictments. What do you think happens? I'll start with you.
I think that we're going to get a decision next Wednesday. The conventional wisdom with juries is that if they're getting close to Thanksgiving, they come in right before Thanksgiving. I think this is such a hard task for these grand jurors that they're going to stretch it out for as long as they can, and they're not going to go into Thanksgiving. So I think Wednesday, and I think criminally negligent homicide.
So, okay,
I'd agree with Susan. I think Wednesday's a prudent place to go with this. I don't think there's going to be an indictment. I think the days of local prosecutors prosecuting local police are still well within our time, and it's not going to happen.
Douglas?
Well, I don't know the time, but I can't believe that they can't find something here. If they're throwing everything into the grand jury, I can't believe they find. It may not even be a felony.
Wow.
It could happen.
Really?
Well, Wednesday or before, I'll take the safe way out. And I think, you know, so,
Yeah, go ahead,
there you go. And I agree. I think a lesser included will be a charge.
But one of the 4 charges that we had mentioned.
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. All right, we come back here. We're going to head to D.C., where Senate Republicans blocked a move to overhaul the NSA phone surveillance program. The question that I asked the panel is, does the program violate our privacy rights? Our panel weighs in on that. This is a 21st century dilemma here that we face, certainly post 9/11. I'll see where they believe privacy and protection, where that delicate balance starts and stops.